Welcome into season 5. This is episode number 13. We're going to make sure it's not an unlucky number for us. It's our 2023 Monaco Grand Prix, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Indy 500 because it's the same day in what is the Super Bowl of motorsports. You've got Andy, and I'm along with Cody tonight, and as always, we are a part of the Ship It Studios podcast network. Cody, it's good to see you. We had a little bit of a delay in getting recording set up last week because we didn't have a race, but how's it going?
It's going great. And, it just occurred to me that you said this is the 13th episode. Maybe we're the reason Imola got canceled. That was supposed to be episode 13. Made the weather come in.
Well, I don't want to be held responsible for dropping 6 months of rain on that region of territory. So I'm going to say hopefully no to that one. But if that was the case, we're sorry. We're going to talk about all of that in a little bit, but we'll get into all of that in just a little minute. And as always, you can find our show on Twitter, what's left of it. And if you're a certain political candidate, you understand what I'm talking about. Instagram, Discord, Reddit, and of course, YouTube at Outlet F1 Podcast. Do us a favor, see our link tree in our show notes. If you're having to be watching this on YouTube, do us a solid, click the like and subscribe button. If you're on your favorite podcasting app, click the 5-star button. It helps us get our content to you that much quicker. You can email our show as always, chatnow@outletf1 gets you there. You can check out our website, www.outletf1.com gets you there. A special thank you, as always, to our continued monetary supporters, including Dean Warwick, Yuri Dulchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Calvin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to become a member and help us out, we would be most grateful. You can look in our show notes. $1, $5, it all goes back into the show and making the show better. So please feel free to check that out. If you'd like to take advantage of our code OUTLAP and get 20% off and free shipping from the good folks at Manscaped, please feel free to check that out and get some good products there. You can check out our buddy Vincenzo Landino. He has a shirt line that he is selling on the F1guy.com. Go check that out. It is F1 quality merch at not necessarily the F1 quality price, which is super helpful because we all know how much F1 merch costs these days. And our final sponsor, the Portage Park Development Project, the thriving community in the Upland Metaverse. If you are from Chicago, Portage Park will sound familiar because the Upland Metaverse is based on real-world cities and properties. Portage Park is an actual neighborhood in Chicago. They want to show the best that it has to offer. Come join them. Links to the Portage Park Discord server, racing track maps, and socials are in our podcast show notes. And as always, we hope to see you in the Metaverse. Whew, it's been a while since I've done all that reading. So we will hop into what is going to be, we have a jam-packed show tonight. We're probably going to go a little bit longer in the news because F1 may have been gone for a week, but that doesn't mean that there wasn't a ton of developments going on behind the scenes. We're going to get into all that in a little bit. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the Indy 500 because it's a chance to talk about IndyCar. The qualifying was amazing. I'm going to say some things that hardly I ever say about a certain broadcast team. So stay tuned for all of that. But we're going to start out. Why were we not available last week? Well, the Imola race looked like it got about 6 months worth of rain in the course of about 3 weeks. There was massive flooding in the Emilia-Romagna region, making transportation to the circuit nearly impossible. I was reading lots of tweets from reporters who were just trying to get from the airport to their hotels, and it sounded like a logistical nightmare. The track got through it on Tuesday. There was some minor flooding in the F2 and F3 paddock. There was some good shots of that on Wednesday. It looked like it had only come up to maybe a couple inches of actual standing water, but any standing water when you're trying to drag cables or set up stuff is going to be a bit of a nightmare. And the teams, the FIA and the track promoter all got together early Wednesday morning and came out. Now, I love they said that they were going to get to it about 6 o'clock a.m. local time, and they broke it about 5:15. So even though I'd set an alarm, that didn't work. But we did get what I thought was ultimately a right decision to call off the race, at least suspend it. It hasn't been canceled. It's been air quotes suspended indefinitely at this point. But I do think, given what was going on in the region, given the resources the race has to take, given you're taking local police, to come and monitor the place and trying to get 100,000 plus people in and out of a stadium safely. I think I tweeted at the time, even if they had tried to go with like a cut bit of schedule, it's a logistical stretch at best, and the worst is almost unthinkable. I mean, if somebody had died trying to get to and from the circuit, that's just something you can't live with.
Yeah.
So this was the right decision. But Cody, I'll open it up to you. What were your thoughts on it?
I definitely think they made the right decision. It was funny in the time leading up to the race that um, they'd been hearing stuff that they were getting a lot of rain in the region, and I was like, how bad could it be? And then I think actually on maybe one of the previous episodes we did, you mentioned that they were getting like an astronomical amount of rain, and then when they finally canceled the race, I was like, oh man, it must be really bad. And then you start seeing the pictures roll through of the track with and the paddock with a fair amount of standing water, and you got pictures of like nearby shops and stuff like that had tons of water inside, and it's like, oh yeah, there's absolutely no way they could have made that work, even if they somehow could have gotten it so that the track was and the paddock and all of the stuff at the track was usable. Like you said, they still got to get all those people to the track and back and everything in and out, and just with the condition that the area is in right now, that is going to be way more trouble than it's worth. You don't want that PR disaster of if God forbid somebody gets hurt. And yeah, they totally made the right call. I was disappointed to not have the race, but it's it's all good. They'll be back there maybe later this year, probably next year, I think. So yeah, definitely the right call.
Yeah, and for and as many times. So here's number one thing that I hardly ever say on this podcast, but kudos to Formula One, to the FIA, and the track promoter for all keeping their heads. They could have tried to say, well, we just won't have track activity on Friday, and Saturday and Sunday look okay, and maybe we'll try to do it that way, or we'll hold the race but behind closed doors or something like that. They could have done a whole litany of things. And hey, I criticize the FIA all the time. This was absolutely 100% the right decision, and their
Mhm.
decision making actually made sense. They talked about different options, they came to a conclusion, and they announced it in enough time. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people, maybe really the hardcores is maybe tried to get there that Wednesday, but look, they were kind of telling you, don't come into the region, don't tax the already stretched resources, and
Mhm.
and my heart goes out. I mean, to see some of these images of around the town and bridges and everything, that's just getting flooded. I know AlphaTauri put out a link if you wanted us to give some support to the region. I think we tweeted it out from our account. So yeah, whatever we can do to help some distressed people that don't necessarily get media coverage in the U.S. because if it's not related to the U.S. news, it just sometimes doesn't get reported in this country. But yeah, so whatever we can do to help is definitely appreciated, and they will appreciate it. Could it slot in on the calendar? Well, maybe later on in this year, but there's not a whole lot of windows. It's particularly once you get out of the summer break, I mean, then you're back into your flyaways. So my guess is what they're going to do is they're probably going to do what they did with like all the tracks that were affected by COVID. They're going to kind of put that contract and extend it out. We know they have 2 more years on their current deal.
Mhm.
And they're probably going to get it's like no event happens. So they don't get dinged for that. And then they'll probably have
Yeah,
next year and the year after that where there'll be guaranteed spots on the calendar. That's my best call. I
makes
do,
sense.
however, have an Emilia Romagna Grand Prix Driver of the Day award that I would like to give out. And that one goes to
Oh,
one Yuki Tsunoda, who stayed behind and helped out some of his AlphaTauri teammates affected in the region. There's a shot of him actually, they put his butt to work
I did
This
see
wasn't a
that. He was like pushing
this was
water
not a
out.
yeah, exactly. This was not a glamour shot of, hey, take a picture with a shovel. No. His rear end was actually doing real work and moving real stuff. So to Yuki and to AlphaTauri and for all those people affected who came together and helped clean up the area, I salute you. So good going there.
Yeah.
So I don't know whenever Yuki Tsunoda is going to win Driver of the Day on this podcast, but he gets one for that race for me.
Yuki wins Monaco.
Hey, anything is possible, man.
Yes.
All right. So moving forward into the next section is what I'm going to call actual news. And then we'll get into rumor news that kind of came up all over the place. But the big news that broke late last night, Honda will return to F1 as a Works OEM supplier in 2026, and they will be powering Aston Martin.
Mm-hmm.
Lawrence Stroll not messing around. I've said this on this podcast. I've said it many times. Don't be sleeping on those boys at Aston Martin, that they've been building things. They've been coming good this year. This feels like the over-the-top piece that could actually really get them into that next stratosphere. Wow, that was a big thing. Cody, what's your take?
I think it's extremely exciting. And, it's been kind of like with Honda coming back to F1 since they left and didn't actually leave. It's kind of been a will they, won't they? Oh, they could come back with this team. They might come back with Red Bull. Oh, no, Red Bull's going with Ford, which I know we're going to get to all that in a few minutes too. But to see them coming back with Aston Martin, I agree that it seems like it's the thing that could put them up to the true championship contention, because right now they're running as a Mercedes customer team, and Mercedes has a works team. So the likelihood that you're ever going to be able to beat the works team if you're buying their engine is pretty slim, because they're going to be designing their car around their engine, whereas you're going to get the specs as a customer and you're going to have to find a way to slot it in. But it sounds like what Aston Martin's doing, sorry, Aston Martin is doing with Honda is really kind of more like a works deal, because Honda doesn't have a works team in Formula One, and they're using Aston Martin kind of as that spot. And I'm sure that they're going to be working together really closely to design that Aston Martin with the Honda engine really in mind. And I think it's going to really, maybe not immediately, everyone's going to have that first year of engines, and it's going to be kind of a little bit of a crapshoot. But I think within a few years of the new engines coming, that they really could be in serious contention, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, if you have not only three main contenders for constructors championship every year, but now four, and four different makes of engine all going at it, that's great. I mean, that is the magic sauce of what Formula One has tried to get to. It's what these regulations have been trying to get to. It's what the cost cap is designed to get to. And I've been preaching patience with everybody on the cost cap, because we all kind of knew it was going to take 4 or 5 years for the real economic impact of that cost cap to really be felt in terms of what resources teams have available versus what ones don't. And I think we're in year 2 really of the sanctioned, really looked at cost cap here. So I mean, we've gotta let that kind of percolate a little bit. But this is now, it's good for Formula One. It's great for the 2026 regulations. It's great because other OEMs want to come back in and be a part of it. We know Audi's going to be involved. We know we're going to have Ford involved. So, I mean, these are big names. We may have Cadillac involved if the Andretti bid can ever, come to fruition. We don't necessarily know how that's going to work. But still, it's good to have relevant, real names, not just the same ones that we've had for so many years, back into the sport. So this is a win across the board. The fact that Honda, who gotten disillusioned with F1, even though they were winning with Red Bull, have decided to come back in, which means that they're bought into these regulations and they're in it for the long term, not just a name, not just a tag name. But it obviously then springs the obvious question: has Honda buried the hatchet with Fernando Alonso? Um, One, do we think Fernando Alonso will still be racing in 2026 when
Ooh,
this
yeah.
comes in? That's 3 years from now. He'll
I will.
be 48,
Oh
I
my
think,
goodness.
at the time. But he's like Benjamin. I heard somebody said it on a different podcast today. He's like Benjamin Button. It looks like he's aging in reverse when it comes to his driving ability. So, do you think he'd still be there? And do you think that that would be any play in it? It doesn't seem like anything from the Honda side now.
I think if he is still around for the 2026 regulations, I'm sure the fans would love it. He has become so very popular, and he's still got it. I got to imagine that being going into his mid 40s, just like any athlete, you're not going to have the same edge that you did while you're younger. But he still definitely has it, and if he has a winning car, I think if there's anyone who can make it happen, it's him. So I think it really kind of depends on how the next couple of years go leading up to that. How if he continues to perform, if the team continues to perform at the level that they're at, and if he still has faith in them going into that, and if they still have faith in him. But I would love to see him be around for 2026 just to see what happens. Um,
Well, and not only that, but does that then open the door for maybe another rogue Indy 500 bid? Because, he still has
um,
ties to Andretti, who are powered by Honda. That was kind of why,
they cut him
all
off on
that
that
faded
before,
out.
right?
Well, he had almost, I think he was close to, I think he finished seventh the one
Yeah,
year
he did
with,
well that one year,
yeah,
and he
he
was
or
going
he
to go
was
back.
running. He was running up there, and I think the engine died. That's what it was. He didn't have much of a finish, because the Honda engine actually conked out, and what was a bit of irony for him. But that was his best Indy showing, for sure. He got along much more with the Honda engine than he ever did with the Chevy.
And he was going to be, I think, doing another Indy 500 too, but he was so busy cussing out Honda in Formula One, right? The Honda engines for McLaren, and then they pretty much
Oh, they
pulled the
told
plug
him
on him driving a Honda powered car in Indy, right?
exactly. For the longest time, that was like a non-starter. Like he would have had to have come in with a Chevy team, and there just wasn't availability for him. So the possibility now exists with a team like Andretti, who sometimes field an extra car, to come in and possibly do that again, because he's one away from the Triple Crown. He's won Monaco, he's won Le Mans. He'd be
Mm-hmm.
the second driver in history to ever do it. So
It'd be incredible.
joining Graham Hill. All right. So just wanted to kind of recap whenever we have new OEMs come in. This is our kind of recap of what the 2026 landscape looks like right now as we see it. We know we have Red Bull, Ford, who will obviously power the Red Bull team, and right now AlphaTauri. That team has not yet been sold, so that we think that that's going to be where those two teams are going to be. We've got Ferraris continuing to power, obviously, their works team, and as of right now, Haas F1. Audi is slated to be the power supplier for the Sauber team. They're going to rename that Sauber Audi moving forward in 26. Mercedes right now for sure is going to supply their works team. We know Alpine is going to supply their works team, and we know Honda is going to now supply Aston Martin. We have two kind of uncommitted teams, free agents, for lack of a better term, beyond 2025, and those would be Williams and McLaren.
Mm-hmm.
Cody, where do you think they're going to end up? And then I'll give you my theory.
Mm, let's see here. Both of them are powered by Mercedes right now.
Correct.
Uh, I think that the McLaren Mercedes partnership has been pretty fruitful, despite McLaren not really, being up to snuff, uh, this season or last season really. But leading up to that, they were running really well, and it seems to be that the McLaren issues are more on the aero side. So I would think that McLaren would probably stick with Mercedes going into the new engine regs. Williams to me is probably a little bit more of a wild card because they've been running at the back for so long that they could really, try to go for anything and see what happens. I I gotta wonder if Williams would maybe try to, um, I think with Honda going with Aston Martin and the way it sounds with it being kind of like more of like a works type agreement, I don't think Honda will go with Williams, or Williams will go with Honda, I guess I should say. So I'm thinking Williams would probably either stick with Mercedes or maybe try the Audi engine just for giggles. What
All
do you
right,
think?
here's where I'm going to throw a couple curveballs. I think Williams will go back with Mercedes because I think Mercedes want to have more than obviously one engine on the grid. But here comes my curveball. I think McLaren, because they let Andrea Seidel out of their contract early, are going to get in bed with Audi. I
Okay.
think that's the payback. And I don't think it's been announced yet, but it's interesting that McLaren hadn't, there was a story that came out, oh, we'll kick the tires on Honda. Didn't really have a whole lot of traction to it. Oh, there's talk about them going back to Mercedes. Not a whole lot of traction to it. I think I've been pegging my McLaren salvation being not necessarily a full works deal, but like a hybrid works deal with Audi because of what they did for Seidel to let him build that team over
Yeah.
there. So
I
that's
forgot that they had that connection, and it
so
would kind of
so
make sense because he left fairly amicably, right?
right,
So if
exactly.
they were able to work something out that way, that would really make sense, actually.
Yeah, and
I could see that.
it's kind of like how Zach Brown likes to horse trade, put stuff off, let it percolate. He's good with keeping secrets. I'm not, I think that's where that shakes out. But we'll see. Maybe this will be a predictive episode. I can come back in a couple of years and go, ha! Or you can come back and look at me and go, you were wrong, very wrong. And it's fine. I've been wrong before. Okay. So, because we didn't have Imola, it means, well, we missed out on a couple things. One, we missed out on that funky qualifying where we were going to have one run in Q1 on hard tires, one run in Q2 on mediums, and one run in Q3 on softs. I don't know whether the next race that's going to be on, but okay, I guess I'm not all that sad to miss that. But it does mean that anybody who was going to bring upgrades now has to make a decision because Monaco is really kind of the one off anyway. Do you bring those upgrades? The big story that I'm seeing out of early photos from the paddock, granted, it's still Wednesday, so we haven't had media day. We'll find out probably more tomorrow, of course. But it looks like Mercedes have side pods. That's
Mm,
the big story. The pivot looks to be on in full force for the triple diamonds of Mercedes. So that's the big story. But I mean, Cody, do you think it's an immediate gain, or is it one of those where they slap it on and they have to correlate, and then this is really not the circuit? It's going to take them 2-3 rounds.
are you talking like Mercedes specifically, or just anyone who's bringing upgrades?
Anybody who's bringing upgrades here.
I think. Oh, at first, I do think that they're going to bring their upgrades here because they want to start gathering data. I think that Monaco is probably not the track that's going to really reveal the true strengths or weaknesses that come from those upgrade packages. Just because, like you said, it's kind of a weird one-off. Um, it will be interesting to see, though, if there's any significant time gained during qualifying, because that'll at least give you an indication of is there, the upgrades giving you the raw pace improvements that you'd expect. I don't think we're gonna during the race though really get a good feel for how those packages stand up over the course of like the full length of a race, just because Monaco is pretty processional most of the time. So even if they do have a significant gain, you're probably not going to see it because they're probably going to be stuck behind whatever car's in front of them anyway. So I think they're going to bring the packages. I think we'll see a little indicator on Saturday during the qualifying, but I think we're going to have to wait for the Spanish Grand Prix to really see how those stack up over the course of a race.
Yeah, I think it makes Spain back into its almost traditional role of this was always the Spanish Grand Prix was always the race because they would test there where all these upgrades would always kind of get correlated. Those practices were interesting. If you wanted to get your shots with arrows pointing at parts of cars, that was always the Grand Prix to do it. I've already seen shots with arrows pointed at cars, mainly the Mercedes. Look, there's a side pod. But beyond that, I don't know what it'll be interesting to see what that show and tell report that comes out, I think Friday morning, will have on it in terms of what circuit specific versus what is car specific and what each team is doing. Because we know a lot of teams, Alpine's brought upgrades. We know McLaren have upgrades in the pipeline. We know Mercedes have big upgrades in the pipeline. Ferrari are bringing upgrades to different Grand Prix, all to try to catch up Red Bull, a little bit. So, the development race is going to be on. So that is something, even if the race itself isn't uber exciting, it's something to watch for and to kind of get involved with, is to see what all these teams are doing and how those upgrades are going.
Uh,
Uh,
I do really quick want to ask you because I don't know if we got it anywhere else on here. What do you think of that Monaco specific livery that McLaren's got?
I think for the most part, I like it. It's you see it in the Indy cars because you've got the black one, the Rosenquist one, and then the Rossi
Mhm.
orange one, and it's kind of a combination of the three. I think they did it in a nice way. It's not my Gulf blue that I
Right.
have the shirt, the hat, a picture, and two different pictures on my walls with that one. So I'm not going to probably obsess about this one as much as that, but it looks cool. I think the coolest of all of them, believe it or not, is Felix Rosenquist's
Mhm.
Senna-esque livery. That thing just pops
Mhm.
in the Indy sun. I like Pato's the all black is pretty cool too, and even Rossi's the main orange from the '70s look. They all look cool in their own ways. But my personal preferences, I like the Senna-esque one, just
Yeah.
because of the heritage involved with that. So it'll look cool. I hope it's near at least the upper part, or at least in the points. But so hopefully it's not just, hey, look, it's fun, and it's 19th. Um, hopefully you got a little bit better there. So that's. But overall, I mean, I like the design. I think they did a good job with it.
Nice.
All right. So now we go from the news we know is happening into a story that, quite frankly, when I first read it, I'm like, oh, next. These are fringy sources. And it's a story that just doesn't want to go away. And it's evolved to the point where even like real reporters like Craig Slater have had to go on Sky and talk about this for 5 minutes. So we wouldn't be doing our jobs if we didn't talk about it. And that is report in the Daily Mail, so take that as you like, that Lewis Hamilton may, and I emphasize may, be headed to the Scuderia in what would be a massive shockwave deal in the driver market for Formula One. The reported contract is in the works of north of 40 million euros a year. Lewis, we know, doesn't necessarily need the money. Obviously, that would mean one of the Ferrari drivers would get kicked out of that team. Could be Carlos Sainz. The same article also says it could be both of them. It could be either Carlos Sainz or a trade with Mercedes, Leclerc for Hamilton straight up. Um, I'll chime in on my thoughts on this whole thing. I think you probably know, if you're listening, you probably already know where I'm going to go. But Cody, I'll let you take this one first.
Um, it's fun to think about. I don't really see it happening. I'm in the same boat as you, where when I first saw a blurb for that, I kind of was like, yeah, it's like clickbait, that doesn't really have any solid ground behind it, does it? And then more and more reputable sources started reporting on it, and I was like, is there really something here? Are they actually like in talks about it? You know, I don't know where the 40 million pound a year thing came from, but I mean that's a ton of money. Lewis is the kind of guy to get it. I think he could probably get that in Mercedes though, um, and he's just had so much success with Mercedes from what 2014 to 2021. Like he's it's his team. It's been built around him. for so long, and he's had such great success there that I think even with last season being, pretty subpar, and this year looking like it's starting out even worse, I don't think it's enough for him to lose complete faith in the team. And I think he probably agrees that his best chance of, getting his eighth championship to set him apart is staying at Mercedes and hoping that they get the next set of regs right, or that somehow through upgrade packages and whatnot, maybe in the next couple seasons leading up to that maybe they'll become more competitive as well. And it doesn't make sense, no matter what way you slice it, that I don't think Ferrari would be that willing to give up Charles Leclerc or Carlos Sainz. Charles Leclerc is one of the fastest guys over a single lap. If he gets the right car and is able to not crash, I think he could really put together a championship run. And Carlos Sainz, I don't have as much faith in him. I've said so on the show before, but he's definitely a great driver. And slots well into right now that number 2 seat over Ferrari. He's young. He's got a long career ahead of him. I just don't think it makes sense. And lastly, all of the images of Lewis Hamilton in the red slacks just look weird. So based on that alone, it feels wrong.
It's bad from a fashion standpoint, so we shouldn't do it. That would be interesting. If all of a sudden, all the black unis turn into red ones, and walking in the paddock and bright red, whatever get up he's going to come to the track with. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you from a realistic standpoint of like, okay, could this happen? The article reads like somebody laid out free agent drivers and then had another column of teams and like, well, where could he go? Okay, Red Bull not going to happen. He's not going to probably go back to McLaren because their drivers are set. So Ferrari, yeah, let's write that. Let's go down that rabbit hole. I don't see it. I don't see why a guy who's been powered by a Mercedes engine for 16 years of his F1 career is going to suddenly pivot and go away from what he knows like the back of his hand. He probably could tell you what engine mode that car is in just by the hum of it. He's probably that in tune with it. To then go to Ferrari where all the systems are different. He's going to have an entirely new engineering crew. He's not going to have any of his people there. It didn't talk about that. Like when he came over to Mercedes, he brought with him a lot of like his PR staff and all of that other stuff. They made a nice nest for him to come in and feel welcomed at that team. And you had the factor of one Niki Lauda that I don't know that you have in Ferrari here. I don't know where you have that voice from on high saying, come on over here. So that's one from the Lewis standpoint. I don't think it makes sense. From a Ferrari standpoint, it's a Band-Aid on a situation. Like they're already pivoting. They're already changing their concept. That probably means legitimately a year, maybe two, away from being legitimate constructor championship contenders again. They may win a race here or there. I think that's definitely in the cards for them because their car is fundamentally, I think, pretty good. They just have some things that they have to work on it. But to try to, even if you insert a guy with the talent of a Lewis Hamilton into that car, I don't know that it becomes consistent enough of a performer to be able to do what it is that they want to do. And the other thing is, from Ferrari's perspective, John Elkann, we know is the dude at that team now. I know he likes Lewis Hamilton, but he's also been a big proponent of Charles Leclerc and has fought for Leclerc in board battles and has won because of that. So now you're going to throw that to the curb. You're going to give Leclerc, your prized boy, over to Mercedes when he's coming into the prime of his career for a guy who, I'm no offense to Lewis and all his greatness, is going to be 38 next year. Again, I just don't see it. I see it that, hey, Lewis's contract is up and maybe at the end of, he's here and Ferrari's here and maybe it can work, but it just doesn't add up to me. So I'm going to put it back into I didn't believe it when I see it. Again, this may be one of those podcasts where I'm eating words later on. And I think I texted the group, if this thing breaks when we go to the summer break, I'm gonna have some sort of a connection. But anyway,
For what it's worth, Leclerc and Hamilton in the same car would be really exciting to watch.
it would, it would.
Still don't
But
think
that's a lot of payroll, man. That's a lot.
it's
I know payroll is exempt from the cost cap, but that's a lot of payroll for drivers. And then who supports whom? You want to talk about two alphas in a team. That's ripe with it. So I don't. I think Lewis's best shot at winning another championship is sticking with what he knows and hoping that obviously Mercedes are going to do the pivot and that the pivot is good and that they've hired smart people to do it. So if you're a Lewis fan, that I think is his best shot at getting number 8.
I agree.
All right. So that's a boatload of news. So we're going to come back. We will take a quick break. We will then get into our Monaco track facts, and then we will go straight into predictions, talk a little bit about the Indy 500, and set the stage for one of the best weekends on the motorsport calendar, Memorial Day weekend in the U.S. And it's a free day on Monday, so you can stay up late or get up early or do whatever you want. So we'll take a quick break and come on back. All right, welcome back to Season 5, episode Lucky 13. Episode of the Outlaw F1 podcast. It's our Monaco and Indy 500 preview, and you've got Andy and Cody, and we are now shifting gears. We'll drop in our green flag and getting into the Monaco track facts proper. Cody, my friend, take it away.
All right. So here are your Monaco Grand Prix track facts brought to you by Pirelli Motorsport. This weekend we are racing around the Circuit de Monaco, located in the teeny tiny Principality of Monaco. Track goes all the way through around Monte Carlo. Number of laps we have at this circuit are 78, and the length of the track is 3.337 kilometers. That's 2.073 miles for you U.S. fans out there. It is the shortest track length on the current Formula One calendar. Tire selections for this race are C3, C4, and C5. So the softest set of tires available by Pirelli. Track characteristics, we've got a 5 out of 5 for traction, 2 out of 5 for braking, 1 out of 5 for lateral load, 1 out of 5 for tire stress, 5 out of 5 for track evolution, 1 out of 5 for asphalt grip, 1 out of 5 for asphalt abrasion, and 5 out of 5 for downforce. Qualifying lap record in the current configuration of the circuit is 1 minute 10.166 seconds. That was set by Lewis Hamilton in 2019 in his Mercedes, while the race lap record stands as a 1 minute 12.909 seconds, also set by Lewis Hamilton during that 2021 season. The Monaco Grand Prix has been around for a long time, so we've got some interesting names here on our most wins list. Most wins at Monaco goes to the late great Ayrton Senna with 6 wins at the Monaco track. Number 2 is a tie between Graham Hill and Michael Schumacher with 5 wins apiece around Monaco. Alan Prost is in 3rd place with 4 wins, and 4th place is a 4-way tie between Moss, Stewart, Rosberg, that's Nico Rosberg, and Lewis Hamilton with 3 wins each. Most constructor wins at Monaco is McLaren with a whopping 15. Next best would be Ferrari with 10 wins, Mercedes with 8 and 3rd, Mercedes with 8 wins and 3rd, Lotus, not around anymore, 7 wins, that brings them in 4th place, and 5 wins for the British BRM. Is that British Racing Motors?
I want to say yes, but I know it's BRM. I know it's the team that Nicky Lauda bought his way into.
Yeah, see, that's how long Monaco's been around for. So we don't even remember the teams just winning this. What's the circuit like?
All right. Here come all the British fans at me that I didn't know what BRM was. I'm sorry.
Me neither.
Anyway, what is the circuit like? It is incredibly narrow and totally iconic. Nelson Piquet memorably described driving around Monaco as, quote, like riding a bicycle around your living room, which is fair. Despite that, it's a challenge that nearly all drivers love, forcing them to put their skills on the line and rewarding millimetric accuracy. Overtaking on the streets is harder, however, with the 2003 Grand Prix witnessing a grand total of 0 passing moves. And we thought we were going to see one last year, but we saw Lance Stroll, damn it! All right, as for the weather, and weather will play a factor this weekend. For qualifying, looks like it's going to be dry, except for a few afternoon clouds. It will be mainly sunny, but warm, high of 74. Winds out of the east-southeast at 5 to 10, a 24% chance of rain. On race day, a big front is coming through over the night and into Sunday. Race day forecast. Thunderstorms likely. High near 70. Winds out of the east-southeast at 5 to 10. An 80% chance of rain on Sunday. So will we see our rain tires? The weather forecast certainly indicates that we may. All right. All right. So we will just keep it going since we already taken our break, and we will now get into our predictions. And if I can find... Oh, God, I can never find anything when I'm looking for it, can I? There we go. It is time for our Choose Your Champion format, our predictions game between Cody and me. We pushed the last 2 Grand Prix, believe it or not. So we need to kind of up our game a little bit and try to see who's going to take the Monaco round of our predictions game. And we will start, as always, with our qualifying pole sitter. Cody, who do you have?
I think I really got to go Charles Leclerc for this one. He's one of the best on a single lap, and Monaco is his home track. He wants to win it so bad. And I think that incentive is going to give him just that little extra oomph to put him over the top.
He has managed to claim the pole before. We know he's good over 1 lap, so that may not be a bad pick.
The pole and didn't start the race.
Well, let's hope it doesn't happen that way. Let's put it that way. Otherwise, the entertainment value goes way down. But I'm rolling with Max until somebody takes it away. Again, I think the guy's just on amazing form. The car is the most hooked up car that I've seen of these regulations so far. So I'm going Max Verstappen to take the pole. All right. So our qualifying lap time, this can sometimes be interesting. Last year's pole time was a 1:11.376, so slightly slower than the track record. Cody, what's your thought on pole time?
I'm going to go a little faster than last year because the weather looks like it's going to be pretty nice for qualifying day and the car evolution. So I'm going with a 1 minute 10 seconds .600.
All right, very good. So you're really close to the track record, but I am actually going to have a new track record be set. I think that's kind of where these are going to go. So I'm slightly faster than you. I'm half a second exactly faster than you.
Yes,
110.1, 110.100 new track record for Monaco. All right, so we will now turn to the race on Sunday. Do we see variable conditions? Do we see multiple tire stops? I actually watched, what was it, YouTube put on, I think the 2008 Monaco race, which was in rain and changeable conditions. Lewis Hamilton hitting the barrier and still managing to make the pit stop work and the strategy work and managed to come away with the win there. Love that old McLaren livery, but a good win for him. So, yeah, if we get some rain, we could have a shock. You could easily see a shock result. Last year's race result was Sergio Perez taking the win, followed by Carlos Sainz and Max Verstappen coming home in third. Cody, how do you see it going on Sunday?
I think so. To give you the podium first, I think it's going to be Max Verstappen taking the win, Charles Leclerc in second, and Sergio Perez in third. That's kind of based off of me thinking that Leclerc is going to take the pole, but I don't think he's going to have enough pace in that car over the course of the full race to hold off Max. Wouldn't be surprised if Max goes for the undercut and when he's got a gap there and ends up overtaking Leclerc during his pit stop. Perez won the race last year, So we know that he's pretty good here. I'm not sure, depending on his qualifying, that he'll be able to keep up with those two, though. So I've got him in third place.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Miami was kind of the harbinger of where I think that the championship was going to go. Like, had Sergio somehow managed to do it, he would have had another opportunity on a street circuit here. Maybe he's got momentum. He won 2 in a row. I could maybe make a case for him winning here. I don't see it happening, though. I think Max
Mhm.
Verstappen's going to take this one. I do think Sergio will be around there and coming home in P2. And again, Fernando Alonso, the dude, like I said, he's Benjamin Button in reverse, man, when it comes to uh, driving talent and skill. I think he'll be watching his teammate on the video screens yet again,
Yeah.
and telling Lance where to move his breakpoint bias or something over the team radio. And that may be the most interesting thing. If it does chuck it down, it could get very variable. We could see some wrecks. We could see, all sorts of things happen. But I think if I'm using my head and not my heart, I got to go for Verstappen, Perez, and Alonso.
Mhm.
All right, so we'll move into our fastest lap and the driver. And last year's fastest lap, I actually remember this when I read it. Now, it was Lando Norris coming through with a 114.693. Remember, it was the most random ass lap, too. All of a sudden, I'm like, why is he going purple? He's going purple again. But he actually it made it. It stood up. It was the point for the fastest lap. So, Cody, what's your thought on fastest lap and the driver?
I am going with slightly slower than last year's time. I'm going to go with a 1 minute 15 flat. Um, I'm hoping that rain holds off long enough for that time to occur, because otherwise it's going to be quite a bit slower than what I've got. And I'm hoping that those Mercedes upgrades really do something for him. So I've got George Russell setting the fastest lap time.
All right, very good. I'm thinking that we're going to see changeable conditions. I think it will rain when the Weather Channel people say 80% chance. That means 80% chance it's going to rain sometime on Sunday. Does it mean that it's going to be a gully washer rain? Maybe. Does it mean that it's going to rain? 100% chance of rain means it may rain at 3 a.m. Well, guess what? It rained on that date. Monaco's weather is always kind of like that. Storms tend to burble up and either hit that sea front and either sputter out or they get a lot of traction. So it's probably going to be one of those, either it's a rain fest and we're on extreme wets or we're in changeable conditions. So I'm going to go with, I think we're going to have changeable conditions because I've seen that a lot of times, especially with it being relatively warm out, track and dry out. I do think we're going to be slightly slower in lap time. So going with a 117.569, but I've got Fernando Alonso probably on his out lap coming on the pits trying to make it a race.
Mm.
But that's where I've got it being set.
All right.
All right. So for our bonus picks this round, I went ahead and made the selection. I love picking the back end of the points. I think that's where sometimes you can actually find some interesting battles. So I'm going positions 8, 9, and 10. So Cody, what's your thoughts on the minor points?
All right. I think in the past when we've done the 8, 9, 10 pick before, I'm pretty sure my drivers have looked kind of similar to what I went with this time. I've got Stroll sliding in at eighth place. I still don't think he's got enough to be keeping up with in that top five with Fernando Alonso. I'm thinking that we're going to get Lando Norris in ninth place with a better functioning McLaren. I really hope. And then I think Yuki Tsunoda, he looks like he's been pretty much the whole season so far flirting with that last point, finishing 10th or 11th. So I'm crossing my fingers for him that he's going to get the point this weekend and finish in 10th.
All right, very good. I'm going with Pierre Gasly to finish P8. I do think Alpine will show better. I don't know that their qualifying pace is going to be what it was necessarily in the last Grand Prix, but we'll have to see. I do have Lando Norris coming in P9. I think that's naturally right now where that car is, barring another set of upgrades. And if they can extract the potential from it, he does go very well here. This is kind of a one-off for him. And it doesn't, the bad parts of the car don't necessarily mean that the draggy and the almost the stupid downforce actually helps your car here. So he might be able to do a little bit better. I'm hoping, obviously, I'm rooting for something better, but I think realistically, P9 is probably where he's going to slot in. And his arch nemesis in when they're in the points seems to be Nico Hulkenberg. So I think Norris and Hulkenberg tend to find each other on track. So I've got Norris in P9 and Nico Hulkenberg getting a point for Haas in P10. Sadly, I'm not aware of any more Haas Chipotle burrito giveaways if they score points. So if I do happen to see that, I will retweet it over the course of the weekend and get everybody as much shot at a free burrito if it's out there. All right. So our prop bet for this race, I couldn't really think of a good one. So I'm like, okay, I didn't want to count the overtakes because that can be sometimes very depressing. So I'm like, well, we'll kind of make it easy. We'll give ourselves probably an easy point. Will we see rain tires on Sunday? I'm going with yes, given the weather forecast that I just read. And Cody, I think you're in agreement with me here.
Yes, I am in agreement with you. I thought really briefly about making it a no, just so we could get a little bit more of a point split since we've tied the last couple of races. But now I based on your forecast there, I really think it's likely.
All right. So we'll come back to when and how to watch your F1 if you're in the U.S. this weekend. But we wanted to pivot a little bit because there's not only one good race, well, hopefully one good weekend on tap, but there's two. The Indy 500 will be this weekend. It is the 107th running of the iconic race here in the heart of the USA. Driver you may know or heard of, Alex Palou, will start on the pole. He is the current points leader in IndyCar and is having himself one hell of a month of May. He dominated the road course that I was at by some 14 seconds. So, yeah, I mean, that dude looks to be on it, and he is definitely the clear favorite going into it. He showed good race pace, showed wonderful qualifying pace, and taking the pole on Sunday. Look for, if you're new to IndyCar, these are kind of your big heavy hitter teams. Look for Ganassi's cars, and they have a slew of cars. They have 4 or 5 of them. Arrow McLaren showing very well, getting all 4 of their cars into the top 12. The Penske boys, not necessarily great qualifying. Look for them to throw some strategy haymakers out there, and they're always a factor. No matter what, the second you count out a Penske team, boom, they show up. And Newgarden and McLaughlin always tend to bring it in this race.
Mm-hmm.
And also look for the Andretti team. Kyle Kirkwood, young American, up and coming. Looks like that is talent being made good. We've followed his career for a long time. He won a race in Long Beach, has a chance to show real well here. Look to be in it. All of those teams will probably be in the mix early. The question is who makes it at the end. And we haven't even talked about the defending champion. That's a name you'll know, Marcus Ericsson. So all sorts of good stories going on. Cody, what's your initial thought? I don't know how much of the coverage you've watched, or did you get a chance to watch qualifying? But what's your thought on the Indy 500?
I have not watched any of the qualifying or practice. I've been keeping up with a little bit. I did know that Alex Palou is statistically right now, or at least in Vegas, the favorite to win. And I did, since you were at that, I've been keeping up with the season fairly well, and it's been a banger so far. And I did watch a bit of the Indianapolis Grand Prix last weekend, since I knew you were there. And man, Alex Palou ran away with it, and he looks like he's doing so well right now. Former IndyCar champ, in fact, and I believe, what was that, 2021?
Yep,
So he's definitely got what it takes. I think he finished second place at IndyCar that year, so he's definitely got what it takes to win on the oval. But being that it's an oval, there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens. It's very rare that you have someone completely run away with it these days at the Indy 500. So I'm personally rooting for him. I think it would make for a great story for him to get that win. He's a really young guy. He seems like a really nice guy. And I think that'd be really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of my rooting interest, obviously I'm a big Arrow McLaren guy. The fact that Tony Kanaan at 45 or 48 or however old he is still going to have a legit shot at maybe taking a final win in his final race would be kind of an amazing thing. Pato O'Ward, the young Mexican driver with the ninja hands, he's definitely got a shot. Alex Rossi's an Indy 500 almost specialist. He's won the race once before. And Felix Rosenquist, don't shy on that dude, because he was probably McLaren's best shot to get on the pole, and he just missed it on the last run. on Sunday in the Fast Six. But yeah, lots of good stories. There's dark horses. The nice thing about this race is you can be P1 or you can be P33, and if luck goes your way, you can be in it to win it at the end. There's a saying, especially with IndyCar, is that the track kind of picks who the winner is going to be by having them be there and survive and get enough luck to be there kind of at the end. So it's going to be interesting. There's dark horses with some great chances. AJ Foyt Racing, who has been they've been struggling the last couple of years in IndyCar, have come up with 2 cars in Ben Peterson and yes, Santino Ferrucci. That name will probably ring a bell for some people out there in the online spaces. But that guy, those 2 have come out and have been fast. Ed Carpenter Racing. Ed Carpenter's been an Indy staple for years. He always brings really good, trimmed out oval racing cars. He's on the front row with Rinus VeeKay from the Netherlands. So, lots of good stories up and down the paddock, and a feel good story, I think, is one Graham Rahal, who actually got bumped and making something good of a bad situation. He gets bumped on Sunday, and an unfortunate incident between, I think it was Catherine Legg and Stefan Wilson, I think actually went in for surgery today, is not able to compete in the race. But Graham Rahal will sub in, and that's a Honda driver coming over to a Chevy-powered team, which is a big deal. So everybody worked out all the logistics for it. So Graham's back in. He's going to start 33rd. He could maybe get in that car, tune it up a little bit over the course of, the practice session on Friday and then the race on Sunday. There's a whole lot of stuff that can happen. It's going to come right after Monaco's basically post-race stuff is going to end. So, you can have a good 6 good hours of elite, wonderful motorsport to watch. You start your day with Monaco, go right into the 500. I am stoked as hell for this Sunday. Just because of that. It's one of the best motorsport days of the year. And then if you're into NASCAR, you've got 600 miles in Charlotte to come in a very long, if you want to have 12 consecutive hours of motorsport, you can do that as well. So and next year there'll actually be somebody doing the double. Kyle Larson's going to do he's going to race for Arrow McLaren at the Indy 500. He's going to get on a helicopter and fly down a la Tony Stewart to go compete in the Coke 600 next year. So it'll be the first time we've seen that in a while.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah. So and Kyle Larson's I always call him like the savant U.S. driver who probably doesn't get enough credit because it's NASCAR. But you put him in other types of stuff. He's in a sprint car. He's fast. He's in a midget. He's fast. He absolutely dominated the All-Star race last weekend at a track that nobody had raced on for a while. So it's just a testament to his talent. He's going to try to do the double. We'll see what happens next year. So that'll be a story to watch coming into next year. But yeah, green flag will happen 12:45 Eastern, 11:45 Central. And here's the thing that I never thought I would hear myself say. It will be on NBC, and I got to give these guys credit where credit's due. I like to lambast them all the time. I hate Peacock for what it stands for, but they've done this month right. That on-air talent, Lee Diffie, Townsend Bell, James Hinchcliffe is quickly becoming one of the most rounded off analysts in motorsport. I like when F1 is here, he's on the broadcast on F1 TV and stuff like that. These are knowledgeable guys. They've actually found a way to make Steve Letarte interesting. They paired him with Marty Smith. So and he's talking engineering, which is what he's supposed to know. So I'm like, okay, I actually learned a thing or two from that guy, even though it sounded like it was chicken fried, but it's okay. So anyway, but kudos to the NBC and Peacock crew who've been there for like 2.5 weeks straight. They've worked it every day. They've pretty much done it almost commercial free. And if I can just stump speech for a minute, that's what these streaming services are supposed to be. Yes, I pay a little extra, but I get all this windfall from it. Don't just give me the race with the commercials in it. If I'm there and I pay my extra money, I should get something for it. And in this case, they've hit it out of the ballpark this month. So kudos to NBC so far. I'm sure when everybody gets to the race, they're all going to go, oh my God, look at the amount of commercial breaks. have the IndyCar app open, find either the main radio feed or a team radio that you're interested in, and you'll be able to keep up with it even during the commercials. All right. So if you are inclined to watch your F1, we have our traditional FP1, FP2, and FP3 format this weekend. It all kicks off 7:25 a.m. Eastern, ESPN2, FP2, 10:55 a.m. Eastern, ESPN2. FP3 will happen a little bit earlier, 6:25 a.m. Eastern, as the sun is coming up. That's ESPN2. Qualifying you can find on Big ESPN, 9:55 a.m. Eastern. We'll get you that. If you want to watch the build-up, the actual race itself will be, again, on Big ABC. So just like Miami, this is a big deal in the U.S. for coverage. Build-up starts 7:30 a.m. Eastern. That's on Big ABC. The race itself will start on 9 a.m. Eastern. Again, Big ABC. If you happen to miss it and you can't do it early in the morning, the race will re-air in its entirety. Again, Big ABC will be 3:30 p.m. Eastern. If you want to go check it out, I would highly recommend doing it. Monaco, we've talked about it. It's not the greatest of shows in terms of overtaking, but it's historic, it's iconic, and it's worth the watch. And it's worth taking just all the atmosphere and everything in. Mm-hmm. So, all right, I guess that'll do it for our rundown. Cody, any final thoughts before I close this out?
Just hoping that Monaco is an exciting one this time, and that we get some good TV direction so that we actually see the overtakes that happen. Before, fingers crossed.
That's actually a story. This is the first time that the Monaco Grand Prix will be handled. The producing and the camera angles and all that stuff will be ran by the F1 crew that does all the other races. Wow. The Monaco Port Authority had that rights to that forever. And as part of, I think, the continuation of Monaco still being on the calendar, that was one of the givebacks that F1 asked for and actually got. So this will be produced. The pictures you're going to see this weekend will be the first time. You may see some different camera angles that you didn't ever see before, because it's not that traditional camera settings that the Port Authority has always had. So it's something interesting to watch for. So yeah, let's hope that it leads to some better race direction, and that they listen and don't show pictures of Lance Stroll in weird places. All right. So thank you for everybody for sticking with us. I know it's a bit of a longer episode, but we had a ton of stuff to talk about. We will be back. We may actually have, I believe we are on track for our first full boat show. All four of us. James, Cody, me, and Deanna will be on. We're going to record it Monday night. We've made that decision already, so we're going to enjoy our holiday weekends a little bit. So we'll probably get the episode out early Tuesday morning or late Monday night, depending on how much editing I have to do. But for everybody connected to the show, this is always fun to do. And as always, we'll catch you Sunday. And as always, may all your laps be fast.